Hello everyone, Stakuyi here.
And I'm Gabby.
And welcome back to the podcast, my host, in which I'm definitely not an idiot because I didn't record for half an hour here before realizing, not me, Gabby realized that I didn't have her mic plugged in. Hello everyone.
Welcome to the show. But before we begin, a really good episode, mind you, about Thailand and Japan in World War II, which will make that connection. I don't know. But anyway, next Friday, right? February 6th, we are launching our second Christmas market trip, which will be the Baltic. We're going to Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, and it's going to be like Christmas markets, castle tours. We make pastries and eat them. It's going to be awesome. You'll really want to be there. And in addition, a lot of people have been asking if we have a P.O. box because I don't know what you want to send us, but I'm really banking on it not being...
Toronto Maple Leafs jersey.
Not being weird. I really was just going to say, don't send weird stuff, right? Like, you guys wouldn't do that.
Yes, they would.
You just said Toronto. You put the Toronto Maple Leafs jersey out in there. Like, okay, yes. I'm not the Preds fan. He's the Preds fan. I'm supporting him. I'm a Habs fan. Do you understand what you just said? It's like saying, get her a Boston Bruins jersey. Anyway, if you do get me a jersey, I will wear it on here. But like, don't do that. Don't do that.
So, with that all being said here, my friends, as she was talking about when it came to our trips, we actually just got back from our trip to Thailand, which was a blast. It was incredibly hot, and you can see behind us right here where it was snowing. We got like 5 inches of snow and another 5 inches of ice on top of that here in Kentucky. It was insane. And that is coming from, it's -5 degrees outside. It was 92 degrees outside when we were in Thailand.
And it was humid. It was like walking through soup in Bangkok, which Bangkok, mind you, amazing.
Beautiful. Absolutely gorgeous.
Jungle, but really hot. And it's just getting progressively worse as, the climate does its thing. But yeah, just keep that in mind when you go.
Absolutely. So yeah, anyway, my friends, here, Thailand. I wanted us to talk about for exactly why Thailand was in World War II with Japan, which, mind you, Thailand was the only Asian country to join Japan in World War II. Now, admittedly, most of the other countries that existed there at the time were either already protectorates or subservient in some way to the European powers. But in terms of independent countries, Thailand was the only one that sided with Japan. And admittedly, it wasn't exactly their choice.
Fair enough.
We're going to get to exactly why that happened in the first place, but it's one of those very complicated things.
I'm assuming they wanted to modernize.
Yes, they did want to modernize, and they failed multiple times.
So they were like, hey, if Japan wins this war, we're going to the top.
Kind of. Yeah, that was at least the position of the guy who ended up taking charge within the government. So yeah, Thailand is one of those places that I can say I haven't really studied all that much before, only certain time periods, which is, again, it's a shame because it really is fascinating. It is awesome. But again, for anyone who is a World War II buff, they may have wondered why the hell Thailand joined Japan in World War II. And the answer is a series of coups, attempt at modernization, another attempt at modernization, and finally the grand delusions of one guy who thought that basically he could be like the new Stalin or Hitler.
Because that's what we should all aspire to be, question mark?
No, but it sounds weird, and I'm gonna stress this right now. In the 1930s, people thought fascism was actually really good. And when I say that, I need to stress this. The reason people thought it was good was because of the German economic miracle of dragging Germany out of, the Great Depression. And to anyone watching from the outside, is like both France and Britain were still suffering in the Great Depression, while it looked like on paper, Germany was just roaring back under Mustache Man. So there were a lot of sympathetic government officials that were like, hey, maybe these guys actually do have a good idea of what to do. Only to then realize later, oh, well, that is the reason it looks like that is because it's basically a giant paper tiger where at the slightest hint of anything going wrong, everything will burn down all at once because it was nothing more than a Ponzi scheme designed to steal money from other entities that were conquered while delaying loans that were taken out.
Makes sense.
Yeah, that's how it works. Anyway,
Thailand.
So first things first, we need to understand why Thailand looked the way that it was going into the 20th century.
I'm guessing you're taking us back to the 1700s.
Yes, we are. Sort of. Yeah, no, we are, because it's me, and what else would I be doing if that wasn't the case here? Yeah. You need to understand that when we talk about Thailand, it wasn't always Thailand. In fact, it wasn't called Thailand until 1939.
It was Siam, the kingdom of Siam.
Yes. And prior to Siam, it was the kingdom of Ayutthaya. But since the 1700s, the kingdom of Siam had been ruled by the Chakri dynasty. And after 1868, you had a guy called King Rama V who began to try and reform his kingdom from what was quite literally a medieval feudal state in which the majority of the country was divided into all these little vassal states into a centralized monarchy. And the way that he was able to reform this over the course of that time was pretty much by sacrificing pieces of his country. So the funny thing is, Thailand is the only Asian nation there in like Indochina that was not colonized. And I say this, not colonized. It did sacrifice and lose territory, but that was a thing that was done for two parts. One, self-sacrifice, where the king was willingly giving up little bits of territory around it. And the second part was in playing off France and Britain off of each other.
Basically, nobody wanted to go in there because it was hot.
Yeah, kind of.
And jungly.
Yeah. Really? So you had Britain that was expanding from India going over into what was British Burma. And then you had French Indochina on the other side that was like Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos, etc. And then Thailand was smack dab in the middle. And in giving up territory to both sides and then playing both sides off of each other, Britain and France came to this conclusion of like, wow, we don't want to cause a world war by fighting over frickin' Thailand. That seems like a not good idea that could potentially cause millions of people to die. Surely we're never going to do that in the future.
Fair enough.
So anyway, faced with continuing Western pressure over time, Rama V would maintain his father's policy of making territorial concessions. And in 1893, after French gunboats forced their way up the Chao Phraya River to Bangkok, he was forced to cede France all Lao territories east of the Mekong River. And in 1907, the French would take over 3 territories of northwestern Cambodia and other Lao territory west of Mekong that had been under Siamese suzerainty. At the same time that all of this was going down with the territorial concessions, he was undertaking major reforms within the country to try and modernize it and prepare it to be a modern industrial power. He wanted a constitution. Do you know what the primary problem with having a constitution and a feudal monarchy is, where you're trying to introduce democracy?
What?
Most people don't know how to read. And that was a bit of a problem because no one knew how to vote. Or if they did know how to vote, they didn't know what the hell actual governance was and how to rule the country.
So they didn't understand the issues that were being faced.
No, they literally didn't understand anything. Again, the overwhelming majority of the population were illiterate peasants. In fact, a huge percentage of the population were basically slaves. Like, yeah, Thailand had slavery going all the way into the early 1900s until it was finally abolished. Because the way that their system worked is that nobility was everything, and your wealth from nobility was everything. So depending on what your status was overall within the system of how much you owed certain amounts of labor to the government. So like the lowest of the low of the free classes, who were technically free, they still owed, I think, like 6 to 9 months of labor to the government, where they had to just work on canals or bridges or roads or farm for the king or whatever. Like that was a form of tax that they had to pay, where it wasn't quite slavery, but it was basically slavery. And then below them, you had people who basically they owned nothing and they were just controlled by the government as actual slaves. So that's fun. Yeah. Anyway, what would end up coming after this here was very chaotic because he would try to modernize a decent amount of the country, and his sons, which I'm going to butcher the names of here in the first place, but Vajirabhud, who is Rama VI, and Prajitobok, which again I'm butchering the name of here, but I'm going to call him Praj, who is Rama VII, they would also continue to try to modernize the country. In the 1910s, King Vajirabhut would try to legitimize absolutism through Thai nationalism, because this is a point where nationalism is really starting to rise up in large parts of the world that is outside of Europe. A big part of nationalism had been rising in the course of like the late 1800s in Europe, but this was something that was tried to be used as a tool by the monarchy for Thailand in the 1900s to create a Thai identity. That was like one of the primary goals, because prior to this, again, feudal state, Thai doesn't exist. It is, you are Siamese, you are Lao, you are Khmer, Cambodia, you are all these varying different tribal groups and sub-kingdoms that had existed before. You weren't Thai, as it was. However, the reforms that he was launching here at this time, such as using commoners in the government, crazy idea, really. Allowing commoners to do things. Why would you do that, buddy? That was something that the military didn't like, and so in 1912 they tried to overthrow him. That didn't work, but they did try to do that. Following this, instead of pursuing a constitution as he had wanted, he just went and fully dipped right into Thai nationalism entirely, as ruling as an absolute leader. And from that, you would then get his successor, Praj. There's a little bit of a problem when I'm talking about this. Vajirabhut, he ran into this issue where the majority of the nobility ran every single position you could imagine. So if you had a government department, it was controlled by the nobility. If you have the military, it is controlled by the nobility. Every single thing is controlled by the nobility, and the upper members of the nobility are all related to the royals. You remember when we were in Thailand and we went to that one palace, and not only did it have the regular palace where the actual king was, but it had the 9 mini palaces that were around it that was for each one of his wives, because he had a bunch of wives.
Yeah.
So you know what happens when one man is married to a lot of women?
They have a lot of kids.
Yeah. Yeah. And that means you get a lot of princes. And when you got a lot of princes, they need jobs. Or they could just live off the state. And that ends up proving to be a little bit of a problem, because they're all essentially receiving subsidies by the government that is fueling their lifestyle.
Why didn't they just have less wives, so less kids? Problem solved.
See, that's a good point.
I guess it wasn't a problem yet.
No, it wasn't.
It's not a problem until it's a problem.
It did really become a problem, but no, that's actually a fair point for why have so many children. And the big thing is familial ties when it comes to government roles, especially with monarchies. That's what determines real power, because it's not necessarily about just what your position is, but who you know. And if, hey, every member of the upper level of a government is also part of your family, that means your family controls literally everything.
I personally love my family, but like, what an echo chamber.
No, literally, that was part of the problem.
That would be wild.
They couldn't really do much. So the goal of the military officers when they tried to overthrow things was to put in a more sympathetic monarch. But again, after it failed, this led to more Thai absolutism, where he relied on more some of the power of the princes, but also utilized the commoners that were directly under him to support himself. So here's the way that this goes. In 1921, Vajirabhut goes and he makes primary education mandatory in order to be able to start educating the populace, because eventually he does want to bring in a constitution. Mm-hmm. Problem again, you need to have an actual educated population that is capable of knowing how to vote.
Did he expand education?
He did. He made primary education mandatory.
Okay.
So that was a thing. You actually were going to be educated until I think like the equivalent of 5th grade or something. But you know, it's a start.
It's a reasonable amount.
It's a start. But in addition to that, what he really needed to do was strengthen the country behind him. Because remember, the nobility control everything. He needs personal authority himself. And to do that, he creates his own private military force called the White Tiger Force. And this thing, it's a good idea, at least on paper, because at first the whole thing is supposed to be just like a bodyguard, but eventually it evolves into a full private military.
Okay, so he has a private military and then he has a public military?
Yes. So
who is paying for this?
That's the God, I love you brought that up. Okay. So, hint, hint, the state is paying for it.
Okay.
The state is also paying for all the princes and everything.
Okay.
Every single aspect of the government is being subsidized by taxes from the common folk.
The common folk who can't read.
The common folk who can't read, yes.
Gotcha.
And important thing to touch upon with this, do you know what one of the most expensive things for a government to maintain is besides healthcare?
Military.
A military, yeah. You know what happens when you have two militaries that have to be supported?
I'm guessing you're broke.
You're broke. You're broke. So from the reforms that he launched, as well as the utilization of the White Tiger Force, which I think at its peak had like 4,000 members, which, mind you, was mostly made of commoners and people within the regular military, which remember were the upper levels of that were nobility, they were not allowed to serve in the White Tiger Force. And since the White Tiger Force was directly under the king, that's actually where the most prestige, power, and political influence came from, which pissed off a lot of the nobility that wasn't allowed in.
Oh no, what are they going to do about it? Have a coup?
Amazing that you would say that.
It's almost like we just recorded the episode.
Yeah. Go figure. If that seems fake here, yeah, it's because this is the kind of part that we got to here when we're like, oh no, what's this? That's not plugged in or recording?
No. You don't know how I figured it out? My finger hit this cable and it just went, and I'm like, wait, that's not supposed to move. So then I pushed it in and it clicked and I was like, wait, that should have already been clicked.
Yeah. Anyway, just like the recording, things were not going to be fine and dandy. So Vajiravood was also notorious, not just for his expensive taste when it came to his military and the government support, but also for extravagance in just about every capacity, state dinners, lavish gifts, etc. And this almost bankrupted the state, which caused his successor, Praj, to inherit some serious financial problems when he took over. But then guess what? Instead of cutting the costs of the extravagance from princes and all the levels of the upper nobility, do you know what he cut instead?
The commoners.
Pretty much. They cut the civil service. So, like, the people who were doing the majority of the work within the government, he got rid of. Which, that's not a smart idea. But he did this both at the start of his reign and also again in the 1930s when the Great Depression hit and everything went to shit very fast. The cuts would cause severe economic hardship for officials and their family, which added to popular discontent with the monarchy during his reign. A rising middle class was also growing increasingly unhappy because, remember, education had been implemented here before, and you had all these people that had studied abroad to learn about how to do things. You had doctors, you had engineers, you had lawyers, or at least people who were trained to be. And then they went back home to Thailand. And do you know what didn't exist?
What?
Jobs for doctors, engineers, lawyers, and all that other shit, because the majority of the country was still just pure straight agriculture.
I feel like you still need doctors.
Well, kind of, yeah, but there were no facilities for them to work in.
There was nothing. You'd still need lawyers.
Yeah, you would think so. But it's like the equivalent of...
What happens if your neighbor's cow eats your rice?
Oh, sorry. He studied specifically how to deal with like podiatry with feet. He wasn't prepared for gastrointestinal issues of bovines.
Right.
That's the problem, is that they actually ran into issues where you had all these educated elites that were coming back and then discovering, oh, I just wasted 4 years at college and now I can't get a job.
The rice fields, bro. Or like a farm.
Yeah, that's literally all that was available for most of the country.
That's
besides
crazy,
like simple manufacturing jobs.
Do they have to go back? In theory, can they work in the country they Well, no, because then you'd be sending all of your people out, which like you need your educated elites.
Yep. And so all of this then brings us to 1932 and another coup and a rapid series of changes. But before that, we have to kind of set the stage here.
The Great Depression.
The Great Depression. But then even prior to that, the stage is for revolution.
The Great Revolution.
Which, Gabby? What is the country where arguably the most radical of ideas and revolutionary things have come from here in the first place? That for some reason, every single time people talk about like overthrowing a government, somehow they're always involved?
France.
France. The frickin' French.
Les Mis.
Les Mis. Oh my God, Les Mis.
He loves Les Mis. It's his favorite musical. He loves it when he hears the people sing.
Okay.
Sing the song of angry men.
I might get some hate comments for this here in the first place.
It's the music of the people.
I hate Les Mis. I do. But I don't hate Les Mis for good reasons. I will fully admit, I do not hate it for good reasons.
He hates it because he's a hater.
No, I hate it because like the main girl in there who's like dying of tuberculosis, it always really pissed me off as a kid that she is dying. Like she is dying of tuberculosis. And she is just singing. And I'm like, this is a disease of the lungs that is rotting you from the inside out. How are you singing like this?
For a man with a really active imagination, where is your imagination?
I told you, I don't hate it for good reasons.
Anyway, back to how France helped Thailand overthrow their government.
So, like most good revolutionary stories, this starts in a French coffee house.
Coffee house?
Oh yeah, no, that's actually a whole thing when it comes to history and revolutions. Do you know how many times coffee houses have been banned in countries?
I thought it was beer houses.
Beer houses were, but well, I mean, beer houses were like expected, but coffee houses were big problems.
Is this why the U.S. has a shortage of third spaces right now? Because they don't want us to revolt?
No, that would be a hilarious. Like, God, I could see someone writing a novel that's like in a dystopian future. Like, well, the first step was getting rid of the coffee houses. The first step of the totalitarian dictatorship was getting rid of Starbucks.
Well, not just Starbucks, but Starbucks they don't want people sitting there anymore. Like, they make it super uncomfortable now. Like, it's not super welcoming. And it's not just that. It's like a lot of different places where you just go sit and like, I mean, the library's always there. They're going to ban, like,
Well, who knows?
We'll find out.
It was the Starbucks in Barnes & Noble that was the first one to go.
Nobody can start a revolution from there because you'll have one sip of that coffee and you'll spend the rest of the time in that bathroom. You could probably start a revolution from the bathroom. Like passing the notes, the manifestos under the door.
Uh-huh.
Somebody accidentally wipes with it. Anyway, friends.
Your idea is shit, and here's what I think of it.
Anyway, France. So, in a hotel in Paris here, France had a lot of revolutionary movements that were popping up at this time here. Because remember, this is pre-communism, if you will. But there's a lot of varying different movements that are occurring within this place. And you have a small group of military students, civilians, etc. 7 of them that assembled to debate the founding of a party to try and bring change to Siam. This is a group that has the name the Promoters, because their whole purpose was not to just overthrow the government in a violent revolution, though that was absolutely their plan. It was to promote change. That's the whole point. The problem that they realized over the course of this time is that even though their ultimate goal was to bring democracy to Thailand, they understood, the majority of our country are illiterate peasants who have no idea how to vote or how to actually rule things, so democracy literally will not work. So they came to a conclusion. Only one thing is going to save democracy. And that's going to be a military dictatorship. Understandably so.
Yeah. Now, to be fair, actually, when I talk about this, I say it flippantly, unironically, multiple times over the course of history. That is exactly what has happened. Military dictatorships have gone in and established things in order to fix a corrupt and broken system. And then from that, they willingly give up power in order to be able to fix the system.
But you have to willingly give up the power.
See why I love this woman? She understands. That's the politics of it. And you know what oftentimes happens when people take power by force?
They keep it by force.
They keep it by force.
So I feel like even if you're a good person, you got to run a country, it'd go to your head. The only person who didn't do that was Cincinnatus.
Mm-hmm. And
that's because he just wanted to, was he a farmer?
Yes.
He just wanted to be on the land.
Mm-hmm. This is why I have said, and this is not a political statement when I say this, this is just an observation of reality, history, and fact. The best government in the world, hands down, is a benevolent dictatorship. It is with a person who understands, cares, and loves their country, who will do everything in their power to help and protect it, and actually will not fall into corruption or other kinds of issues to be able to save their nation. They are a selfless person. And there have been multiple examples in history of people that are mostly that. The problem with a benevolent dictatorship is that it is almost universally, I say almost, it is universally followed by a not so benevolent dictatorship typically. And even if you have a benevolent dictator take power initially, they can be very quickly overthrown and replaced by people who are not so benevolent. So they don't even necessarily have to live out their entire term before things change. Yeah. So when the promoters eventually go and return to Siam by the end of the 1920s, they would quietly go and expand their list of contacts by going into the schools they would teach, the military units they were a part of, etc. And they would gradually grow their contacts up to a number of 102 members that were not the low-class soldiers of society. They were like the upper levels within government, military, etc., that were the middle to high-ranking people that could actually enact change. Because go figure, you can't just take over a country with 1,000 soldiers. But if you control 50 colonels, the colonels is actually way too high of a position to say this. You control 50 upper levels within the military. You're in a way better solid position because you can theoretically, by virtue of relations, control all the people under them. The stage was thus set going into 1932 for a revolution to take place, as no one in the country was happy at the time. And this is what I mean. See, the current king, Prince Praj, he had inherited, as I said, a country in crisis. His brother, King Vajirvud, had left the state on verge of bankruptcy with his military efforts, and the state and the people were forced to subsidize the many princes and their very lavish lifestyles. Because go figure, they're not paying for a housing stipend off of DC, they're paying for literal mansions that are being controlled here by princes. And so Praj goes in and he creates the Supreme Council of State to solve these problems. And this council was composed of experienced senior princes that replaced a lot of the commoners that were put in by the previous administration that were not necessarily as competent or as loyal, which does sound like a step backwards. It does, because go figure, the entire point of this in the first place was that they were trying to put the common people in power in first place, not let everything be controlled by nobles. But this actually worked. They did enact quite a number of changes. They were able to efficiently handle things with the state. They weren't as prone, you could say, to some of the corruption because they actually already had came from money and were specifically idealistic enough to, God, what is the word that I'm trying to use here? Be a little bit more selfless, I could say here, maybe. They still wanted their power, but they were more competent than what you had seen here before.
They were more noble.
They were more
about it.
Noble. I love and hate you at the same time. That's the thing I should have done right there. Damn.
Did I out-dad joke the dad?
Yes, you did. So the king also at the same time, he made himself far more accessible to the lower classes. He actually traveled around the country to see what their problems were. And so people began to actually familiarize themselves and put a face to the name of who the king was, which sounds great, and it is, but...
And there's always a but.
Now that he was way more visible to people, people also had a face to put to the name of who to be pissed at when everything went to shit. And you know what happened in the very early, or late 1920s, early 1930s that sent the entire world plunging into shit?
The Great Depression.
The Great Depression. Yeah. So in 1930, as the Wall Street crash and economic meltdown reached Siam, the king, seeing what was going on, was like, all right, guys, I got an idea of how to fix this. We're going to levy a general income tax and property taxes on all the wealthy nobles in order to help alleviate suffering of the poor. So we're going to use that to create the varying different social programs, and we're going to fix this. This idea was then summarily rejected by the Supreme Council, who did not want to see their money as nobles go away by paying an income tax. And instead, they're like, we're going to cut costs. Don't worry, King. We got this. It's fine. And they proceeded to cut the budget of the civil service. Again, this is the people who were actually doing the majority of the work within the government, and they're the ones who got cut. The king would then later admit that he lacked financial knowledge, saying that he was a soldier, not like an accountant.
He could have hired an accountant, though.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe. The problem is the accountants were commoners, and he hired a bunch of nobles who wanted to keep their power.
Amazing.
Yeah. So it was then that in June of 1932, while Praj was away from Bangkok, the promoters, who were back in Thailand by this time, would stage a bloodless coup, seizing control of the army, imprisoning the royal officials who had constituted the ruling group, and persuading the king to agree to rule under a constitution. So, hey, it worked. In fact, it's actually really funny how the story even went down in the first place. I don't have a whole bunch of stuff in the notes to talk about it, but I do actually want to mention this. The whole thing was a bluff. Like, I kid you not, they had maybe under their control like a couple hundred or thousand people. That's it. But they set up this mass demonstration, basically went in front of like the government in front of the palace, holding like essentially a rally, announcing that they were creating a new government. They had sent in a couple soldiers to basically wake up the barracks and announce that the Chinese were staging a revolt. Like the Chinese population in there were starting a riot. So they sent in officials from their group to take over these military barracks and put the soldiers under their command, and then marched them out there to start cheering as they were announcing the new government. So all these soldiers woke up from their barracks. They went outside like, oh God, okay, we're going to start a riot or stop a riot. We're going to do this. Oh, okay. Then they're half asleep. And then it's like, all right, guys, new government. Now everyone clap and cheer. Yeah! Inadvertently meaning that all those soldiers who literally just woke up and had no idea what was going down were like, oh shit, we're actually part of a coup now.
There's worse things to be part of, I guess.
Yeah.
Like a failed coup.
Yeah. For anyone, I recommend read the story of the. I could have done that literally just this episode, the 1932 coup, because it's very funny. I think I'll do that as a patron episode, is literally just doing the coup, because it's that funny of a story. But anyway, yes, they launch this coup. It does work, and they go and set up their new government. Problem was that many new members of the new government had not played a direct part in the coup, and a lot of them were very conservative in their political thinking, instead wanting to reinstate power with the king. So the king has a lot of his power stripped away from him by the government that takes over. And the government puts in a lot of officials that were very conservative and royalist in nature to kind of keep the peace. And then go figure, instead of supporting the new government and going through with the ideals that they wanted, because remember, they're not the majority of the government, the people that are put in power then proceed to vote to give all the powers back to the king again. Bit of a problem. I know you're making a face like, what are you?
How does Japan come into play?
Okay, we're going to be there. We're going to be there in here. This is the early 1930s. Japan starts coming into play going into like 1939, 1940, which will be part of that. Technically speaking, they're involved earlier with the whole issue with Manchukuo, and Siam is like the only nation that doesn't. They abstain, I think, in the not UN, like the League of Nations resolution to condemn Japan. They don't do it, and that's like the start of relations. But yeah, that it was a mess. So here's how this goes down. In early 1933, when Pretty was, who was one of the conspirators here, was drawing up an economic plan for the country that was way more radical than a lot of the members of the new government could accept, feelings ran so high that the king was forced to suspend the National Assembly. The military leaders, then fearing that, the royalists were going to gain control of the government again, they forced the reconstitution of the National Assembly, which was followed by another attempted royalist counter-coup in October of 1933 under Prince Beauredet, who was a cousin of the king. And so, although there was no evidence that the actual king had participated in this additional royal counter-coup, he realized that his position was unsafe by this point, and so he got the hell out of Dodge in 1934, fleeing to England. And then in March of 1935, he abdicated. A regency council was then appointed to act for his successor, Prince Ananda, who was a literal schoolboy in Switzerland. And now finally, since the king is just a schoolboy in Switzerland, a military dictatorship is able to take over the country, and boom, there you have it. That's how that comes into play. So yes, thus it was that a military dictatorship finally came to rule Thailand in its entirety, and they just basically gave up all pretenses of this transitional government. I will stress this here in the first place. When the military dictatorship took over the country, they established a long-term plan. You won't know what their plan was?
What?
Their plan was that they were going to hold elections. But they were going to hold elections in Thailand when one of two things had happened. Either, I think it was 80% of the country had completed primary education, or 10 years had passed. One or the other. Then they would have elections. So that was their limitation that they put on themselves for their transitionary period. Like when they had first taken over the government, was like, guys, don't worry, we're totally going to have elections. We really want to bring democracy to the country. But we need people to actually get educated first so they know what the hell they're actually doing. Which again, smart, kind of makes sense, but that is what it is they had done. So, in December of 1938, a guy by the name of Phibunsongkhram takes over as military dictator, and the following year, he changes the country's name from Siam to Thailand. The whole point of doing so was Thai nationalism, to unite the country behind one idea instead of being all the disparate little kingdoms that they were. Like you had Siam, you had Lana, you had the Khmer, you had all these varying different ethnic groups and tribal groups and little kingdom. And he was like, no, we're not any of that anymore. We are Thailand. One thing. That's what they were. Which makes sense. That is something that he had pushed for. But from that, he embarked on a strong nationalistic policy that was extremely pro-Thai, as this idea now was, and then simultaneously very anti-Chinese at home, as well as irredentist and pro-Japanese abroad to reclaim territory that had been lost in previous centuries. For anyone who's curious, irredentist means like you want to take back things that were taken from you. And so in the case of Thailand,
any of the land they gave up?
All that land that they had given up over the course of like the mid to late 1800s, they're like, man, we want that shit back. And what was going on in 1939 to 1940 that completely flipped the world on its head?
I just really don't know. Maybe the whole point of this episode, World War II, oh my God.
Yeah.
It took you like, I don't know how long we were.
Welcome to the life of me explaining a story. We're going to go back to the 1700s again. Now, to explain about Thai elephant warfare. No, we're not doing that.
I was like, how would that relate to Japan?
No, it's not. It's not. So, over the course of this, he pursued a very pro-Japanese policy, and he set about elevating the military to a high position within society. And of course, he, naturally, as military dictator, was the head of all this. He was the Grand Field Marshal. He was going to portray himself as defender of the state. Modernization was also a key important theme in Phibun's new Thai nationalism.
Would you say he was your defense daddy?
I hate you.
I know.
I love you, but I hate you. He was the DOD. He was the Department of Daddy Defense.
Wouldn't that be D-O-D-D?
Yeah.
He was the D-O-double-Ds.
He was the Department of Daddy.
We can work on it. We'll
work on it. We'll work on the naming sense from this.
You finish like what you're doing. Yeah.
Anyway, the whole thing that he was trying to do, as I said, was all about Thai nationalism. From 1939 to 1942, he issued a set of 12 cultural mandates. And in addition to requiring that all Thai salute the flag, sing the national anthem, and speak the new national language, mandates would also encourage Thais to work hard, stay informed on current events, and to dress in a Western fashion. The mandates would cause performances of traditional Thai music, dance, and theater and culture to all basically be abolished and changed into Western styles. Like, this guy got rid of everything that was part of like the old ancient Thai culture and system to really push it as rapidly as possible into modernization. Remember, just like 30 years prior, Thailand was a feudal state, like just pure feudal state. And they're changing into this rapidly. Meanwhile, all cinemas were instructed to display Phibun's picture at the end of every performance as if it was the king's portrait, and the audience was expected to rise and bow. So if you had like a theater production or you had a movie, right? You know how at the end, like imagine Looney Tunes where it's like, that's all folks, right? Now imagine that, but it's like movie is over and then it's just portrait of the dictator. And then everyone had to stand and they had to bow.
I feel like that's a reasonable thing to request of the people you're dictating.
Yes. He also referred to himself, his title was the leader.
Just the leader.
The leader.
Not like the great Thai leader.
Yeah, like for anyone, like, how Thira means father.
So he was the defense daddy.
That's mustache man. That's like in German, like that. That's his.
Well, I know, yeah, but that's what I'm saying.
Yes.
Well, not mustache man. I'm talking about the Thai dude.
Yeah. So he admired the German economic system. He admired what the Japanese were doing. He
admired the wrong guys.
Yes, but he wanted to create for himself his own cult of personality. And yeah, hey, when you're doing this, every great leader needs some victories, right? Because you can't just establish a cult of personality and say, dude, look at me, I'm absolutely amazing. Because I totally am, right? You have to have something to back it.
Right.
So in November of 1940, taking advantage of the defeat of France by Germany in June of that year, Phibun would order the invasion of northwestern Cambodia that formerly had been under Thai control. Japan would support Thai claims to the disputed lands, and in mediating peace, it ended up being a huge win for both Thailand, which got many of its territories back, and Japan, which bound Thailand closer to it because, oh, bless you, they bound Thailand closer to it as they were the entity that was supporting them for all negotiations.
Continue on without me. I'll be back.
And so, yeah, from here, you would think, for anyone who's curious about this, that like, oh, obviously, Japan supported Thailand, so Thailand is going to be Japan's #1 supporter. Naturally. Like, yeah, of course that's going to happen. Except, no, they're actually not. The crazy part about all of this is that over the course of this time heading into World War II, as Japan was becoming more and more expansionist, the Western powers were nervous about Japan invading and taking over the varying different colonies that they had there, which obviously is exactly what happened. And Thailand didn't want to be wrapped up in a conflict. So over the course of this time, in the same way as what had been occurring in the previous century when Britain and France were being played off one another, Thailand was playing Japan as well as the Western powers off of each other by essentially going to each one and saying, oh man, but Japan offered me this deal, so I guess I'm going to have to go through with this here unless I get some kind of support to do this. And then going to Japan and going, oh, well, the British are planning on coming in here and setting up a whole expedition as well as trading force and also building this fortress here. So I guess I'm going to have to go with this. Essentially doing anything they possibly could to set one against the other to keep themselves independent. Because if they supported one side or the other far too strongly, what would end up happening is that, well, they could get dragged into the conflict. And they didn't want that to happen. The problem then became that the Japanese decided enough was enough and didn't want to let them do that here anymore. They kind of took matters into their own hands. So it was then that at 2300 hours on the 7th of December, the Japanese would go and present the Thai government with an ultimatum to allow the Japanese military to enter through their border in order to be able to engage in their Burma campaign. Because yes, despite the fact that the Japanese had not yet taken over all of China and were still extensively fighting in there, they needed the resource to attack British Burma and India, so they were going to divert a huge amount of military forces south and spread themselves even thinner by marching through Thailand in order to be able to go and get them. They gave the Thai government like 2 to 4 hours to respond, and remember, again, they issued this at 2300 hours, so like 11 p.m. The Thai government wasn't awake and active at this time.
I feel like I missed so much. Were they asleep and inactive?
Literally, it was 11 p.m. Imagine this. Imagine if I was going to go to a government and say like, no, dude, totally, I absolutely did this for them. Like, look, I went and I submitted my election paperwork and I did all this. And I showed up to the mayor's office or something at 11:30 at night. And I'm like, I was there.
Were you?
Yeah, I was. No one else was there, though. And that's the problem. They issue this ultimatum at literally 11 p.m. No one is awake. The government is all asleep. They're all gone. And 4 hours later, they invade, sending their military forces in. Phibun, who is out of Bangkok at the time, has to rush back to the capital. And initially, there is some fighting between Thai and Japanese forces as the Japanese are just rolling through them. And then a general order is issued out for all Thai forces to lay down their arms, and the Thai government enters negotiation. They have an emergency meeting, they wake everyone up, and they go to negotiate with the Japanese. And so within hours, literally just a couple hours, it's all over, and a treaty is established. The Japanese are able to move their forces through Burma, or through Thailand in order to go after Burma. The Thai are allowed to keep control of their military, and they are not occupied by the Japanese. But at the same time, they are forced to sign an alliance. Thai military forces will aid the Japanese.
So they didn't want to do it, but Japan forced them to do it?
Yes. Now, Phibun, the military dictatorship, he was in full favor of going and doing this. He wanted to do this.
But not the other people.
Oh, no. The overwhelming majority of his government was like, no, dude, no. What are you doing? We don't want this. In fact, it's actually funny about this as a detail. The Thai ambassador in London would deliver Phibun's declaration of war to the British government, but the Thai ambassador in Washington, D.C., Seni Pramoj, refused. Like straight up, the ambassador to the United States, when he got the message like, hey, buddy, we're declaring war on the Allies, was like, oh, no, we're not doing that. And he just refused to deliver his declaration of war.
Good, I think, but you're still at war, right?
Well, technically, here's the thing. Without an official declaration, this means Thailand never actually declared war on the United States and never did that.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good. That's a good thing.
So that ended up proving to be very helpful because here's the problem with modern conflict and investments and assets. They're not just owned by a government. They're tied up in a lot of other things. And you know how there's different reports that come out with the United States now of like, oh, hey, we're sanctioning this entity or the other. So all those assets are now frozen. Like in the case of when Russia not declared war, but when Russia launched its special military operation in Ukraine and all those Russian assets were, yes, I know, doing this because, you know, the special military operation that has gone on now for almost 4 years.
Do they have a Department of Special Military Operations?
I don't know, but all I'm saying is after the U.S. did the whole thing with Maduro, it's like the memes that came out of that said, see, Russia, that's how you do a special military operation. It lasted 4 hours, not 4 years. In fact, no, it didn't even last 4 hours. It lasted about 2 hours.
At what point do they tap out, or is it embarrassing? They're like, oh,
Dude,
we're getting our ass beat.
We'll see.
Tap out.
We'll see.
Are they just gonna keep it going? How long can they go for? I mean,
know.
they're massive, so I'm assuming a long time. I don't know. We're getting off topic.
The goal of bringing that up in the first place is when the conflict broke out, all those Russian assets were frozen, meaning the Russian state could not access its money that was stored within the United States.
Why didn't they pull the money out first?
Well, you can't just do that. It takes like a time to be able to process this.
Right. So you pull it out, and then you wait for it to process, and then you launch your special military operation.
Well, the hope was in the first place that the conflict would be over quickly, so it wouldn't matter.
So they did zero recon.
Yeah. Also, there is a thing to be said, and I covered this actually when talking about the Russian deathonomics, because I did that as a whole video before. But they still had assets that were in the U.S. The majority of their overseas assets, they had done exactly as you said. In the previous years, they had gradually repaid and taken care of a lot of their foreign loans, dependencies, and other stuff, and had brought a lot of that money in a kind of cash reserve back into Russia. So they didn't make themselves sanction proof, but they made them they made themselves far more sanction resistant over the course of the 2010s. That was a big thing that they did.
So they were planning this for a while.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Anyway, Thailand.
Right. So all these assets get immediately frozen by the United States, of course, because obviously they're in a conflict, but the ambassador refuses to declare war. So what do? The US government goes to the Thai ambassador and basically says, buddy, you're a really cool guy. You didn't declare war on us. So you know what we're going to do? We're going to give you all the Thai government money.
So he just got all the money.
He just basically got all the money. Now, not for himself personally as a piggy bank.
Keep it, right?
Yes.
Like he was in charge of it.
Yes. So,
but he could also skim some off the top because his fees.
Yeah, potentially.
His fees from money management now. Now he's the money manager of Thailand. Like, I feel like he deserves a little something.
Yeah, potentially. So because he didn't declare war on Thailand, not only did he get all this money, but the U.S. never actually declared war on Thailand.
Well, good for us.
That didn't happen. And so with American assistance, Seni, who's that aristocrat guy they were talking about here before, the ambassador, he had already well-established anti-Japanese credentials. Like, he was not pro-Japanese at all here in this case. And so with the support of the U.S., he would organize the Free Thai movement in the U.S., recruiting Thai students to work with the United States Office of Strategic Services, the OSS, which is like the CIA before the CIA was ever a thing. Seni was able to achieve this because, again, he was given access to all those Thai frozen assets from the United States. Meaning then, over the course of the next 3 years, he would organize the Thai resistance movement, gradually building up more and more and more forces within Thailand. And now the crazy part here is that the Thai, and I'm going to skip past a lot of this because this whole point isn't about necessarily, this is why they joined World War II, not what they did over the course of World War II. The short of it is that Thailand didn't necessarily do all that much. Like, they supported the Japanese, if you will, but there were major problems. They participated in some military actions, but the Japanese, because they needed fuel for their military industry, they took basically everything. So if they found like a British sawmill or an oil refinery or a rubber factory or something, the Japanese would basically take 99% of all of it, leaving just a little bit for the Thai. Also, when Japanese forces would go in, they would requisition supplies from the Thai military and also Thai civilians. So they would basically give IOUs and then just take whatever they wanted. Not exactly clean situation. So it built up a lot of resentment to the point that by 1945, the Thai resistance movement had grown so heavily that the plan was to launch a full-scale military uprising where the Thai police force or militarized police force would go in and was going to arrest all the Japanese officers and officials that were in the country at the same time, once I think the US was launching Operation Downfall to invade Japan. So at the same time that Japan was going to get invaded, all the Japanese forces in Southeast Asia were going to be rounded up and captured in one fell swoop in Bangkok. And then guess what happened?
What?
The nukes dropped. And Japan got a lot warmer for like a couple hours. And when that happened, there was no need to actually invade anymore. The whole Thai uprising that was supposed to happen and be this really big movement never took place. Japan surrendered. Thailand immediately afterwards basically called for a ceasefire and laid down its arms. And because it didn't really participate in as much of the conflict, except for a couple key things, and was forced into that position in the first place, and with the US leading most of the negotiations and handling of things in Asia, and they didn't declare war on the US, technically speaking.
What happened to the ambassador?
Oh, actually, no, what ended up happening to him? I think I had it in the notes here in the first place, how he went back. God, what ended up happening to him? I swear I remember seeing the stuff for him in the first place. I think I forgot to actually put that in, what ended up happening to him.
He's the main character.
Anyway, Phibunsongkhram, all them, yeah, he gets humiliated. He loses office in like 1944 in the first place, but 1945, Thailand is free. I know it literally sounds so anticlimactic to do here at the end, but that's what happened. Japan surrenders. There's no reason to fight or invade Thailand anymore. It goes back to kind of the way that it was. And, oh, go figure, Thailand was friendly with the United States at this time with the new forces that had taken over. Oh, what's that? We have a new bulwark against communism in the area because they don't want to lose everything to China? That's great. And Thailand, over the course of the next 50 years, is heavily supported by the US.
He became Prime Minister of Thailand in September 1945, if this is the right guy. Seni Pramoj?
Yeah, that's him.
Hey!
Okay, so he actually becomes the guy who's in charge of the government afterwards.
Yeah.
I literally did this whole thing for why they joined in World War II and then just didn't do any of the stuff for after World War II.
Well, part 2. After World War II.
Yeah. So,
yeah.
That's the end of that. Again, it sounds so anticlimactic because we just like built all this up here at the very end and it just...
They didn't do anything much.
No, they planned a whole revolution to take everything back, and then it just ended up being unnecessary because Japan got the sun dropped on them twice.
Sorry, you guys. I can't look this way because the lights are in my eye, and I think I have a sinus infection, so I'm struggling so bad with this episode.
Well, either way, with that here, my friends, that is the end of things here today. I think for the bonus episode, we are going to do a whole thing on the coup. Just because I think it's a fun story. Or if you'll have any ideas of episodes that you want, let us know here in the comment section below. Because I'm going to take a lot of those into consideration as we go to make things.
That's what we've been going through to get ideas. So
anyway.
Well, usually it's on Patreon. Patreon gets first dibs.
Yeah.
For suggestions. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. Make sure, we have the P.O. box. We just linked it. And don't send anything weird. Please. And then on top of that.
Maple Leafs jersey.
Do you hate me? You could say it. You could say you hate me.
No, I don't hate you.
I'm not wearing a Leafs jersey. Gabby, they're bottom of the Atlantic, Gabby, and also it's Toronto.
Gabby, if I hated you, I would have made you do this episode twice. Seriously.
And with that, folks, join us in the Baltics. I keep wanting to say Balkans.
I know.
Anyway.
We could do one in the Balkans. There's Bosnia. That's one of the trips that they're pushing for me to do. Yeah. That might be fun. Anyway, bye, everyone.
Bye.